Hi everyone, my name is Jason Todd and I'm a data scientist and manage the data science group here at Thomson Reuters FindLaw. I'm excited to meet with you today because we've got some interesting topics that are coming down the pipe when it comes to analytics and in how it affects digital marketing. We're going to start off with talking about business metrics and what really kind of defining and understanding of what metrics mean and how they're being used in the marketing and digital marketing world. Then next we're going to go into business intelligence, and with business intelligence talk about visualizations, how business intelligence is different from reporting, and really share how you can communicate how performance of digital media is occurring and affecting your customers that you'll be working with. And then finally there's SEO Competitive Analytics. During that topic we'll talk about some industry benchmarks, what's happening for search engine optimization, how things are being measured, how things are being performed. So let's start now by going into business metrics. When you look at business metrics, I feel like we are living in a transformative era. There's a few times in your career, in your life, you're going to be able to recognize monumental shifts in either technology or changes. I feel like we're living in one of those changes right now, and some refer to it as the mobile transition or mobile wave. Billions of devices are going online this decade where more and more consumers are consuming content via their phone, their tablet, their desktop, their laptop, and all of this is building patterns in how consumers see media. When you look at what's happening from the 1960s up until current, in the 1960s it started off as a mainframe area where computing was really centralized and really kind of more kludgy. Then it moved into in the 70s when you had mini computing, and the mini computing was primarily used by government and business. Still, it was very centralized, not really driven into the hands of end consumers. In the 80s, you saw through the 90s, you saw the desktop computing revolution take over. This really put computing devices in the homes and really set the preface of the era that we're living in right now. In the last decade, you've seen this shift from desktop computing to mobile type computing where people are using their laptops and phones to really consume content more rapid before. What this is causing in the market is things are virtualizing from a product perspective that used to be really paper oriented. For example, ID badges, where you used to carry maybe sometimes in physical badges now, a lot of people are getting into their places of work using their phone to scan their entry methods in, as well as when you have a contact card or an ID, being able to show those through media. Music is another example of that. These all used to be physical products that are now virtualized in the era that we're living in, where it's all kind of being downloaded and consumed through end consumers on mobile devices. So let's talk about this in terms of what this means for us. As a digital marketer, it used to be people were very focused on content. When you look at content, the content was all aesthetics driven. There was a lot of how does it look, how does it look? Now in the era that we're living in, it's a matter of marrying up performance of that content. So how often is it being accessed? How often is it being used? How many users have looked at this? How many users have actually clicked on this link? You're seeing a marrying of content along with data science that's creating a new frontier for us in the digital marketing world. I always like to use the term, if you don't like statistics, and we're pretty good at it at one level or another, we just don't really know it. When you look at it, what's happening in digital marketing, and we'll talk about this in more detail in the upcoming sessions, is metrics are coming in, you're seeing how well your content is performing when you create a website, and then you're just analyzing what's really driving those value adds and what's next. The first line that I tell everybody when we start trying to use this content is it can be tricky for analysts to really understand what's happening. And so as a digital marketer, when you're showing metrics, not everybody's going to understand what we're saying. And so I always start off with is we want to come up with a common language to talk about. So on the screen as you're looking at some of the video content in the PowerPoint, it's a joke, but there's a certain seriousness that's associated with it. Is we want to make sure that we communicate how things are performing in a business-centric way, and let's talk about how we do that next. So the first thing is we're going to start to convey the word metric. So we're going to talk about what a metric is and then how we convey that to our end customers. So a metric is a fact. So metrics are primarily numeric things that are used to quantify performance. Some examples of metrics that we've used in digital marketing are number of page visits, number of sales transactions, number of distinct users who have seen this content. These are all numbers that you can analyze over time and on certain content to see how well it's performing. So when you hear the word metric, think numeric, and we're just trying to quantify performance and then put those facts in a certain way where we're either going to sum it, we're going to count it, we're going to use the first, the last, the min, the max, and really just roll that information up so people can interpret it. After you have metrics, what really helps is then organizing metrics into a form of a narrative or a story. Instead of just throwing out random statistics to individuals on how well things are performing, it's best to organize those metrics in a constructive story to tell about the performance. The metrics are really used to answer certain questions, and so what I like to do is lay out the questions that we're trying to answer with these metrics and tell it in a story format. For example, one package that I just worked on lately is we were connecting consumers by what they were consuming offline. And what I mean by that is, let's say person A, I was able to see they logged on their train ride home to our mobile app. They looked and browsed some content on legal needs that they had, and then they were using their tablet. I could tell it was an iPad tablet, and then they were able to just see certain content associated with what they were. Then the session ended, and a few hours later, I was able to trace that same person logged in from their desktop computer at home, and they actually submitted a lead to an attorney from what they were consuming. You're able to nowadays build profiles to say, a lot of people maybe consume things and read it and research on their tablet, but they actually do things like the actual transaction to make the sale or actually convert the lead on their desktop computer. So it's exciting information that we're able to connect nowadays and then tell it in this story format that really helps. The third angle that we're going to start to tell is, or use the term is ROI, or return on investment. So as we're telling these stories about what happens and how the website has been performing or how the mobile app has been performing, we want to talk in terms of and tell the story of what does this mean for the customer. So for example, if we do a digital marketing campaign where we invest $5,000 in search word ads in a metro area market or a market like, for example, Menominee, Wisconsin, we want to be able to see where what the return was for that $5,000 that was spent. So we can start to track performance and tell the story of, well, we've seen a 30% increase in traffic for Menominee, Wisconsin with this $5,000 investment. This was not the norm before, but after we did this pay-per-click or PPC ad, we've seen this uptick in what's happening. So that's where defining the metrics, putting it in the story format, and then talking about the return on investment is a big value add for the team. And then finally, one of the things that is happening, and I think statistics or statisticians have gotten a bad rap historically, is it seems like it's just a quantitative process only where you're just looking at numbers. Nothing can be further from the truth. When you look at how statistics are communicated nowadays, is you're almost a bit of an artist as well. On the screen, you're going to see some maps that are associated with statistics that are behind it, where we're putting great visual references, which we'll go into more detail in the next section, of how do you tell the story of what's happening. So in the upper left-hand quadrant where you see geo sales, you're able to really take a look at, Texas and California really stood out because they're a deep blue because they had the most sales associated with the time period that we're looking at. And it makes sense because there's bigger populations with that. But then you look at the next map by margin, and even though Texas and California were the big standouts on overall gross sales, we can visually communicate metrics like Mississippi, you look at Wyoming and some of the rural areas, we're getting better margins because we're having to invest less in those areas, but we're getting a better return for that. And being able to communicate trends with a line graph, a bar graph, or an area graph that you see down below, and then being able to put this in that story format. Thank you for kind of getting started on business metrics, and I'm excited to do the next session with you with business intelligence and reporting.